So today we are in the Vision House where somebody's next door playing Queen really loud, but we're going to try and ignore that. Today we are going to talk about how to wrap cables because that is an important skill as a camera assistant. So let's have a look. Wrapping cables depends on the type of cable. Is it an electrical cable? Is it a BNC, a SDI cable? It really does depend, and there are different ways of doing both. Now, also, different people like doing them different ways. So the key is to either work out what type of cable it is and work out the best method of rolling that cable, or alternatively, asking the person who owns the cable, because they may have a very specific method about how they want to pack and store their leads. Just don't wrap any cables like this. For any video cables, over-under is the correct method of wrapping a cable. Now, you can do this very simply by using a simple twist of your fingers. So get one nice big length of the cable, usually an arm's length, and then twist your fingers in a varying direction each time, so inwards and outwards, so over and under. Sometimes cables need to be trained to do this, so it might take a few goes at getting it correct, and other times it may need to be laid out in the sun for a little bit to soften up. When wrangling one of these on set, it is very key to be neat and tidy because it is a huge tripping hazard. So you have to be really careful about where you place your coils and also careful about how you lay the cable. So when you're laying any sort of lead through a house, especially with video leads, you got to make sure that you don't stitch yourself into a corner and you make it as safe as possible for everybody else on set. In terms of how to set up your cable well so that you don't have to continuously keep wrapping the whole cable, it's best to leave your coil next to the monitor and then take off whatever you need, making sure to wrap the rest so that it doesn't get tangled up easily. So I like to leave my coiled cable either on a monitor stand, on a hook, or anywhere near the monitor, and then take from the bottom of the pile to connect to that monitor because the coil will need to stay close to that monitor. And then I take off whatever I need from the top of the pile to get to a camera. Also take off a little bit extra just in case you have to move. So when you're running leads through a location, just make sure to keep safety as your paramount. Make sure that you either tape down leads if they're in a walkway, or alternatively use a safety mat. If you are using tape, don't over tape your cables. If you tape them in doorways and then leave the rest loose, that's probably a good method because then you have space to move. Otherwise, if you've taped way too much of the cable and you need to move, you're going to have to untape everything and redo it, and that's just going to take more time. Also, tape can get really sticky on cables after a long period of time, so just be aware of using way too much. Same goes for electrical cables. If you're running those anywhere through a location, you've got to make sure that that is as safe as possible. It's your job to make sure that your setups are safe, so make sure that you either use safety mats or tape for those as well. For electrical leads though, the typical method is over. Now, electrical cables are a little bit more difficult most of the time because they're a little bit more rigid than a standard SDI or video cable, but again, that comes with the type of cable. Some are easier to roll than others, and it's the same sort of thing you'll need to do. You may need to train the cable, and the best method, like with an SDI, to train an electrical cable is to just lay it out in the sun for a few hours. That'll make it malleable, and then you can roll it up nice and easy. When you're coiling power leads and leaving them while they're being used, it's a little bit different than an SDI lead. So with a power lead, you can do something called figure eight, and that kind of distributes it evenly, so there's no chance of it overheating potentially if there is any issues with the lead, because that can cause a fire. This is especially common in leads that are longer, so just be aware of that. So you always start with the male end, because the male end is going to be staying near the power point, and your coil should be near the power point that you're using. So pull this through and start to form a rough figure eight. And then with the female end, you can simply drag it away to where you need to go. And everything should come away cleanly. Another little tip is to channel your cables, so making sure that you keep them together and then split them off. That way it makes it a little bit easier to find where a lead is going. You don't have to tape here and tape there, or put a mat here and put a mat there. It's a little bit neater. Also attached to that little tip is another little tip about audio cables. If you're running any electrical cables, it can cause interference with audio leads. So usually a sound recordist will be wrangling their own cables and they'll be keeping track of their own thing, but just Just be aware that if you are running any electrical cables, that you don't run them anywhere near sound leads. If they're crossing, you can cause an electrical interference. Not all the time, but it can happen. And if you know that one lead is going to be moving more than another lead, so let's just say you have an SDI lead that's going to be moving with the camera a lot more than an electrical lead is, try and layer them if they ever have to cross, so that you have the lead that is going to be moving more on top and the one that isn't really going to be moving at all on the bottom. That way you won't have those really embarrassing tangles in the middle of a shoot. If you're running multiple leads together, so let's just say you need a little bit of extra length to get from one point to another, with electrical leads, tie a knot in the cables beforehand and then connect them, and that way, if they do get pulled at any point, they're not going to become disconnected. Now, if the weather is rather wet outside, you will have to wrap those cables to make them safe as well. Sometimes you can get cases for those, and other times you may have to use some sort of bag situation. But again, that's a case-by-case basis. Same for video leads as well. If you've got a connector in the middle of two video leads, they can break very easily. In fact, they're one of the things that break most often on set. So when you put the barrel connector in, maybe tape it with some electrical tape to keep it together and keep it safe. So let's just say it's a tracking shot and you're going to have to be wrangling the cable during the shot. If it's handheld, it could be a little bit erratic, so you want to be prepared as possible. So the key here is not to have the whole lead in your hands, still have the majority of your lead over near your monitor, and take off the maximum of what you think you will need, and then take a little bit extra. That way you'll be prepared for any sudden movements. Now the key here is to make sure that there is enough space between yourself and the operator and anybody else who is around the camera at the time, because you don't want to be a tripping hazard to them, and to also make sure that the lead is off the ground so that that's not a tripping hazard either. And then if the operator makes any sudden moves, you can take off the back of the lead towards the monitor so that you have extra space to move. And if you need any extra space than what you have, you can just give your cable a bit of a tug, and if your cable has been wrapped correctly, the coil at your monitor should come away freely and you should have enough space. When you're done with a shot, it's probably best to get in there as quick as possible and remove the lead from the camera, because more often than not, at the end of a shot, the camera's gonna move anyway. So you're going to wanna pick up the slack here and make sure it's safe for everybody. So once you've disconnected from the camera, you should either have a coil in your hand if it's a handheld shot and you're needing to wrangle cable during the shot, or you should have a clear line to the monitor, disconnect from the camera, coil it up as neat as possible, and then come back to your monitor and pop it down on the rest of the pile. So if you wrap your cables correctly and keep them wrapped well throughout the day, and take note of these little management tools, you should be able to have an easy pack up at the end of the day, and that's what counts. Nobody wants to stick around wrapping cables. So today's question of the day comes from Liam Murphy on Twitter, and Liam is asking, do you feel like your gender has ever held you back in your professional career? And did people on set ever assume you worked for one particular department because you were a lady? Yes and no.
Do you want me, a straight white man, to come and explain it?
I'm going to leave that in.
Let me explain it. Being a female in the industry...
Yes, I do think being a female in this industry is a lot more difficult than being a straight white male in this industry, and there are a lot more glass ceilings, I guess. I have experienced things where I might be on the same level in terms of skill and experience as a male counterpart, but they may get more high-profile jobs a lot quicker, and it takes me a lot longer to get up to the same spot. And that's a thing that a lot of women experience in this industry, and I'm not really sure where that comes from, but it is a thing. Something that it may have to do with is maybe a skill assumption. A slight female like myself, people may look at me and go, you can't carry that? And I can. I've been doing it for more than 5 years now. It's an assumption, and it's an assumption that needs to change. I find also that because I come from a technical background, people assume that I don't know anything technical, or I may have less knowledge in the technical realm. So having women and non-binary individuals in heads of department is a good thing. It's a step forward because we're creating role models for the future generations. And it also changes the assumptions of, she can't lift that 20-kilo camera. So yes, I have experienced sexism on set on multiple occasions, and yes, I do think being a female in this industry is harder than being a male in this industry, but I don't think it should hold you back from what you do. There are still glass ceilings and things need to change, but we're getting there, and there's a lot of initiatives happening now that are moving towards that goal of equality in the industry. And to answer the second half of the question briefly, no, personally, I haven't actually been asked on set if I'm a part of a different department, but I have witnessed other people being asked, which is fairly awkward. So assumptions need to change, clearly. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video today. If you did enjoy this video, please remember to give it a big fat thumbs up. And if you would like to see more of my face and learn a little bit more about filmmaking in the process, remember to subscribe, and I'll see you later.